Have you been experiencing internal financial struggles triggered by economic concerns? Are you feeling capped at your current income level and can't seem to realize your financial potential? Energy healer Gene Border has created an emotional freedom technique, or EFT, tapping protocol to help calm the inner voice that keeps you stressed. Claim your free copy at geneborder.com/vow and say goodbye to those financial blockages. Welcome to another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Gene Border. It's not just about dreaming, it's about making those dreams a practical reality. Subscribe to us via your favorite network by visiting our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com. Now, get ready. Your journey to success starts here.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Gene Border, with another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, where we talk everything energy to help you grow your business. Mindset issues, we're going to talk about mindset and marketing today. Not every small business person's dream is to be the great marketer whose business takes off because they've just got this right down pat. Said no business person ever who's starting out. But anyway, we're going to get there. But before we have a whole lot of fun with my special guest today, Drew Donaldson, let me remind you, down and below the show notes, click on the link if you're having any issues with finances, with money. If you have some decisions to make regarding your business or how much money to spend to market your business, whatever tension shows up around money, there's a few EFT tapping protocols in the PDF. Just click on that link, download it, do some tapping to help you get in a state of calmness so that you can make the best decisions for your business. geneborder.com/vow. If you're listening and can't see the show notes, it's there for you. Take advantage. And now on to my special guest. Hi, Drew. How are you?
I'm doing great, Gene. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is Drew Donaldson, who, like I said, is going to get us in the right mindset for marketing. So tell us a little bit about you.
So my name's Drew. I own GroHaus, or it's that side. It's a marketing agency that specifically serves the needs of knowledge and service entrepreneurs. So anyone in the coaching, consulting, or like nonprofit space, anytime you're providing a service rather than a product, that's really where I come in and help. Our focus at the agency really is kind of twofold. It's one about developing your offer and what is the thing you're really bringing to market to make sure you're not commoditizing yourself. Because as we all know, if you've ever had to get a plumber, you really just compare what the estimate is going to be. Is it going to be $700 or $7,000? And you're probably going to pick the cheaper one as long as the guy is showing up, like actually showing up in a truck and not a bicycle. So that's a huge part of what we do. And that's where we start every engagement. And then from there, we manage the marketing process. And so making sure that depending on the stage your business is in, that we're leveraging the right resources and assets to push you out into the marketplace. So that could be anything from getting you on shows like this one and letting you speak on other people's platforms, all the way to running paid media. And so that's really the focus of our firm. We've been in business. I actually started at the beginning of COVID. So like 3 months before COVID happens, great time to start a business if you're wondering. And we've been going strong ever since.
Cool. So what made you decide to get into marketing? How did you get from where you started in your business to where you are now?
So it's kind of funny. I went to school for film, and when I first graduated, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Both my parents were entrepreneurs, and I just never thought I was going to fit into like a 9-to-5 office job. The idea of sitting in a cubicle was the biggest torture I could ever imagine. And so I just when I was still in college, I started a production company, and we did a music video for an up-and-coming artist for Warner, their media kit, and we did an interview with them, and we did a bunch of stuff, and then we did another music video. And so that was my first big client, and we did a bunch of work, and then I leveraged that to take it into the small business community and start helping small businesses leverage video online. Because this was kind of at the dawn not a video online, but business video. Like up until this point, this is like 2008 or so, the only video online was like creator video. It wasn't businesses putting out like branding pieces or any kind of content marketing was still a very new. Like you think content marketing really came about with like the financial crisis. So like this was all a very new area. And so after I left college, I started really trying to pursue growing this production company. And I got work and I got rave reviews for my work and my clients loved it. And, you know, I've had ads on television, but it was so inconsistent. I could not keep my pipeline full of clients no matter how hard I tried. And meanwhile, I saw guys that were not nearly as skilled, didn't have nearly the accolades, didn't have nearly the credits, getting work all the time. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, I was told, like, if you study hard and you work hard and you perfect your craft, that like you just get work. Like that's how it's supposed to work. And it's like, no, that's not how it's supposed to work at all. Like that's the part that was missing was marketing. And so I became obsessed with marketing and all things marketing, really as a survival instinct. I had no interest in marketing. I actually hated the whole concept of marketing because I was a creative. I liked doing funny videos and like that's where my passion was. But as I was trying to figure out marketing, I had an internship at the time of the studio and I went to the most senior person at the studio and I had a pretty good relationship with him. And one day I was sitting in a edit session with him and I was like, how much do you get paid, man? Like, just like be real with me. Like how much, if I stay in this career and I you know, climb up the ladder, what am I getting paid? And he like turned to me with like a big smile. He's like, I get paid $25 an hour, like proud. And this is in New York City. Now, granted, rates have changed since 20 years ago when this happened. But at the time, I just read an article that Costco's entry level employees were making $25 an hour. It's like, I am not going to work my butt off to get to a point where I'm making as much as an entry level Costco employee. Like that is not happening. And so that's when I decided I need to pivot and I need to get out of production entirely. I was also really getting tired of carrying like 100-pound light kits through New York City in the summer. That's not really a fun part of the job. And so I started applying for marketing positions as like video in marketing. And I was like, all right, if I can take what I do here and I can get into a marketing team, then they can teach me about marketing. And then I can go back and I can run a production company and at least make more money than I would working at a studio. And then I just really fell in love with the marketing. I think I just started shifting and I was like, yeah, video is cool and all, but like marketing makes you money and it can make you a lot of money. And so I really started shifting my focus to not do the production anymore and instead just become a marketing consultant. And so, you know, I worked at that marketing firm or marketing department for a few years at St. John's University in Queens. And we won some awards. I cut their production budget by like 75% because we insourced all this stuff from an agency. And so like it was a great experience. And then from there, I moved into like a much more like marketing consultant, pure marketing role with a publisher. And I stayed there for 5 years and just continued to kind of hone my skills around marketing because I never went to school for this stuff. I had no formal training. Like everything I know about marketing, I learned through doing it, like actually building campaigns, actually launching, actually looking at analytics. And so I spent 5 years managing like a $3 million pipeline of content production and marketing production for them. For their sponsored pieces. So I got to work with some of the biggest financial names. Like every single client said their name, you'd be like, oh yeah, I've seen them. Like, you know, so it's was a great experience doing that. And then as that was coming to a close during, I knew I only had like a year left in 2020. I knew I wanted to change directions. And so I decided, well, instead of doing a production company, why don't I take all the stuff I learned from marketing and build a small business focused marketing agency? And so I launched that 3 months before COVID. No one was buying anything during COVID. So I spent the whole year just interviewing business owners about what they didn't like about marketing companies, because in those first 3 months, I got so many rejections and small businesses just being like, oh, I don't trust marketers. I don't trust marketing consultants. I don't trust marketers. And I was like, something's wrong here. Something's broken. Something is damaging my industry and I can't figure out what it is. And so I just spent time like really asking people the hard questions and then letting them lambaste me for 20 minutes about how my industry is a bunch of, you know, snake oil salesmen. And it taught me what small businesses really wanted in marketing. And what it really came down to is they needed the knowledge, but they also needed the guidance and then they needed a level of support. Because there's certain things that even if I could teach them and show them how to do stuff, they still were not going to be able to do it themselves, and they needed someone to come in. But if I didn't lead with the knowledge, they weren't ever going to be confident in my ability to execute what they needed to have executed. And so that was 2020. And since then, there was a year there where I took on 2 partners, and they helped me really launch the business in 2021. And then about a year later, I bought them out of the business. And since then, we've been growing consistently every year, and we've niched down now to only focus on service businesses because I just looked at the numbers. I was like, I actually met with a consultant last year, and right around this time, and I was really frustrated with a couple of elements of my business. And I said, I feel like I'm pulled in all these different directions. I have all these different clients doing all these different things, and there's no consistency between them. And I have some clients that do great, and then other clients that don't. I'm just trying to figure out what's the thread? Why do some people succeed and some people fail? And we listed out all the clients and all the success stories, and every single success story came from a service-based business. And so I was like, okay, well, that's it. So I still do have some clients that do product, but the caveat to that is that I only work with products that have already launched and already have sales. If you are just launching a product, then I can't work with you because I don't have the knowledge that you need to launch that product. But if you have a service that you're about to launch, or you're in the process of launching, I can absolutely come in because I've worked within the service industry now for like 10 years. So I know how that works. So that's really been the journey so far.
Different parts of your journey is like, yep. And I think most of us in the world that I'm in, a lot of us are the same way. Marketing, I don't want to do marketing. I hate marketing. You don't know, well, you probably do, the resistance I had to work through to even start marketing, because I set the intention early on, the right clients will find me at the right time. And that's just the way the world is going to work. I decided, right? And I decided. And honestly, that's how I grew my business. And I had great clients, and I'm 95% referrals. And I still have parts of this mental block against marketing. Now, on the other hand, I'm totally fine doing podcasts, which gets me out there, which is a form of marketing, and I enjoy it. I get to talk to really cool people. I get to find out what they do and get tips on growing my business more, right? So there are parts of marketing that I'm okay with, but for me to say, oh, buy my product because it's great, buy my service because I'm the best, that just doesn't sit right with me, So we have to find what works for us, what feels good for us, following some kind of strategic plan to get us somewhere, right?
Yeah, well, I think there's 2 elements there. I mean, the first thing is that there's a lot of people that try the wrong marketing strategies at the wrong point in their business. So like, for example, if you're going to launch paid media, realistically, you need to have $1,500 a month set aside just for paid media. No matter what you're running on, what platform, if you can't earmark $1,500 in your bank account and say, this is my marketing budget, you really shouldn't be messing with paid media. For direct offer, right? You're trying to get clients. You're not just promoting content or that kind of stuff, for direct offer stuff. And the reason is because you have to spend at least $50 a day to really be able to test your ads effectively on a short enough time horizon that you can pivot effectively. So if you're only spending $4 a day on a Facebook ad, it's going to take you a year before you can really tell if that ad is really working or not, because the line of validation is exponential, not linear. So if you're spending $4 a day, or let's say you're spending $25 a day versus $50 a day, it's not going to just take you twice as long. It's going to take you 3-4 times as long, because the reality is that your competition is always going to be outspending you at that level. But at $50 a day, you really stick your head above the clouds a bit. You get out of that realm of like people who are just kind of tinkering with Facebook, who are just like, oh, I'll throw $10 a day at this. And you're starting to play with like the serious players that, and not the real serious players, the people that spend thousands of dollars a day. But you're getting above that noise so you can actually see if your ads are going to work. In the same capacity, the other side of it is figuring out what are the things you actually like doing. Because to your point, you like doing podcasts. That's great. But you shouldn't use the fact that you like doing this thing or that thing as an excuse to not get better at the other things, because it's kind of like working out, right? Like working out is hard. It's by its nature painful, right? Like it's your muscles are going, right? But it makes you a stronger person overall. So we have to go through a little bit of pain, but we doesn't mean we have to eat a porcupine every time we wake up in the morning. Like that's not how marketing should feel. Marketing is hard, and that's just the way it is. But it's not impossible. You just need to figure out, okay, how do I take these things that I know work, because I can see other people do them, and do them in a way that still stays true to who I am and isn't going to make me feel like an icky car salesman at the end of the day.
I like that. And have to eat a porcupine every day. For me, it's like, I don't want to do this because it sucks the life out of me. That's my porcupine eating example, I guess. Yeah, it's just like doing with the podcast. The tech stuff behind the scenes, not my deal. You know, I tried it. I did 4 episodes all on my own. I said, it's just not how I want to live my life. So I have a tech team now, you know? We have to find what works for us.
100%. And I just realized my camera glitched out there for a second, so I'll be back here in a second. But yeah, I mean, realistically, like delegation is a huge part of entrepreneurship, and it's you always delegate too late. You always should have delegated 6 months ago. And so like the best advice I ever share with people when they're starting to feel stressed out, starting to feel burnt out. So I was like, hire someone. Go look at your low-level tasks and get someone to just do that. Get a VA. You can hire a VA for $4 an hour. If you can save yourself 20 hours a week because they're doing all this other stuff in the background for $4 an hour, which is only $80 a week, that just means you can't get Uber Eats that week, right? Just cut down your Uber Eats by 1 meal, and you can afford a VA that's going to work for you part-time for the next month, and then remove 20 hours of work that you can now focus on selling yourself. And I think so many entrepreneurs have this hard time with thinking about like, oh, I got to pay this person every week. And it's like, yeah, but by doing that work yourself, what's your rate? How much do you get paid now? If you're getting paid $100 an hour, you're now cutting your hourly rate by $96 to cover that $20. So you're not spending money, you're saving money. You're opening up more time so that you can be productive and actually sell more of your services. So I think that's the other trick to this is like, you're not going to be good at everything, but you need to have an understanding of how everything works. Like that's one of the big things I preach to my clients is like, everybody wants to just go out and hire a marketing agency. And like, you would think I would be the guy to be like, yeah, that's the best. No, it's not a good idea. Don't hire me until you know if I'm going to do a good job or not. Because if you can't look at the numbers yourself independently and say, this is working, then whether it's me or any other marketing agency, how are you going to be able to tell if we're doing a good job? So it's like having a good understanding of this stuff, even if you're not physically able to do it, that is a critical component of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I say repeatedly, I'm one of those people that's a lifelong learner. I'm always taking some kind of class, you know? Now, whether I follow through and actually do the work that I learned in the class, that comes back to sometimes just the resistance I feel inside or oh my gosh, that's just another issue that I have with tech is that as soon as you learn a process, they do an upgrade and now you've got to relearn the process again, right?
Yeah.
So some of those things I'm willing to do and other things I'm like, you guys take care of that for me, you know? But there's so many parts of the business that you would think as a marketer that I have intricate knowledge of, and I just don't, because I can only keep so much stuff in my head. And every weekly change Facebook makes of how the flow goes to create ads, I can't keep up with that. So I have someone that does that, and they keep up with it. And so all I have to do is drop a brief on their desk and say, this is what we're doing. And then they handle all the nitty gritty technical stuff. And when stuff breaks, I have a technical guy that his whole job is just to help my team solve technical problems. Because I realized that I was spending like half my week doing this work. And I was like, I could just pay someone to do this. I don't need to learn all these platforms. Like that's not the best use of my time. So I think you mentioned, taking courses and not implementing them. It's never a bad idea to expand your horizons. And it's not a problem to watch something and then not execute if you feel like it's not going to like be a good fit or that you don't have the technical expertise. At least you know that what you need to do so that you could potentially hire someone to do it. And you could kind of gauge, are they doing a good job? Are they doing what you learned in this course? One of the things I've heard you say, or this is my interpretation of what I've heard you say, is that marketing, you can do it out of order. What does that mean?
Yeah. So essentially, I use this framework to talk about this. When you're first starting out, it's called the time versus money framework. When you first start out, you have all the time in the world and absolutely no money, right? And so you need to think about marketing through the lens of, I have no money to spend on this. So what are the things I can do for free? And then as your business grows, that seesaw starts shifting and you start having more money than time. And so then it changes the perspective on marketing. So like I was saying with paid media, if you're just getting started, I love paid media. I'm a big proponent. I grew my business on paid media. But the reality is that you need money in the bank to buy paid media, right? And if you only have $100 a month to spend on marketing, paid media is not where you should be spending it, because you're going to have way better returns on other platforms that are going to cost you less. So like, for example, one of the things I preach to people when they're first launching is that you need to get really comfortable with cold outreach. And you need to be able to get comfortable with it early on, because in the long term, it's going to pay dividends to get used to it at the very beginning, rather than trying to learn it after you have all these other bells and whistles at your disposal. You're going to become too dependent on paid media or any of the other tactics that you might be using, and then not do the cold outreach part of this. So like, for example, if you can get a LinkedIn Sales Navigator subscription, which will let you message a bunch of people for $100 a month, you can get an LinkedIn automation platform for about $100 a month. That's $200 a month. And you can automate your entire outreach process to a highly targeted group of people based on your criteria. And instead of going and spending $1,500 a month testing ads, you're spending $200 a month reaching hundreds of people who are in your market. And you can constantly update and tweak that messaging without the same level of financial commitment. And so it's way better to start there. I think the other problem that people do is they build a product before they've done any market research to tell if people actually want to buy it. The first step in my process, the very first thing I teach people to do is market research, is to go out using cold outreach and interview, just like I did, a bunch of people in your target market and figure out, hey, what are the real pain points to, if you're helping someone grow their business or helping someone train their pet or whatever, what are the real pain points that you're experiencing in this process? It helps you in two ways. One, it validates whether the thing you're looking to bring to the market is actually going to solve a problem. But two, it gives you the language that they're using that you can then reflect in your sales copy. So if you skip that step and you just go straight to, okay, here's a landing page and a sales page, and it just looks great, and then no one buys, you might get the misconception that like, oh, well, I'm just not good at this. Well, it's like, well, you didn't do the homework, right? It's like showing up to the math test without opening the textbook. It's like, oh, and you got an F? Well, you didn't study. So like, that's that. When I say doing things out of order, a lot of people jump to these big shiny objects or like webinars. I love the webinar example because everybody wants to run a webinar because they see all these people making money. What they don't see is that before they ran a webinar, they had been marketing their business for years. And that was just the next step in their evolution. Starting with a webinar when you're first getting started is a very risky gambit if you're doing it by yourself, because it's a ton of work, an absolute ton of work. And then if you don't understand how a webinar works or how to structure a campaign around a webinar or have a follow-up sequence for that webinar, you're looking for trouble. Like that things are not going to go well for you, right? Like, yeah, every once in a while someone wins the lottery, but most people struggle and fail when they're trying to tackle a marketing beast that big as their first marketing thing, right? It's way better to start small, do direct one-on-one outreach, and then grow to bigger, automated, more scalable campaigns.
Yeah, one of the things that I got shoved down my throat early on was, in your marketing, talk to one person, because you try to go so big that you get nobody, right? And so the whole webinar idea is kind of the same thing. If you don't even know who you're speaking to or have never done a small intimate gathering like that, how do you plan to handle all the people, theoretically, that might show up for your big webinar? You've got to have a support person with you in case your internet goes down. I mean, all kinds of little things behind the scenes that if you've not grown to that level, you don't realize until you're in the middle of it. Because I saw that at one point years ago, right? oh, there's a really cool webinar, and they had slides. And so I copied the slides and I created my own. I never launched it. So I spent hours creating this webinar that I never launched because there were so many things. Okay, well, now I've got it. What do I do now? And it was just the order was not right.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing, is that people get shiny object syndrome, and they try to, oh, I saw this webinar. This looks really good. I'm going to do this. And then they get into it and they realize, like, it's not just this, it's this, plus then you also need this piece. And then you need these 3 pieces before it. And suddenly it becomes something that, oh, you can write a webinar in an hour. It's like, okay, I wrote the webinar in an hour. The other stuff's going to take me 10 hours to do, and I don't know how to do any of it. And so then you go back to square one, and instead of like pushing through that and going through the whole process, you're back at the start and you have to try something else. And so it's like, it's somewhat baby steps of like just understanding, like, if you're just starting out, market research is where you need to start. Like, that's just part of being a business owner. Like I'm not a big fan of business plans, but the one thing that business plans get right is that you have to do market research to validate, is this business a good idea? Once you know that the idea is good and you have that audience defined, then it makes it a lot easier to do the other steps. But if you just jump straight into, I'm gonna follow this template and do my webinar, and then you don't know who you're talking to and you lose the thread somewhere through, like it's just gonna collapse on you, and it's gonna make you feel like a failure, even though you did everything right, because you did it out of order. So that's one of the big concepts. The other thing that you mentioned is like talking to one person versus talking to an audience. There's this practice that I see a lot of people go through, which is especially early on their journey, but it really can happen anytime through. And I call it needless niching. And so the idea is that we're all told that we need to, the niches are the riches are in the niches, right? And so we all have to define this niche. But people just pick their niche at random. It's essentially like just pulling decks out of a playing card and being like, okay, I'm going to go, or like a Mad Libs, I'm going to go for coaches and consultants, and then they're going to be women, and they're going to be 35 to 45. And then if you press those entrepreneurs on that, and it's like, okay, why entrepreneurs? Oh, well, my product speaks to that. Okay, that's fine. Why women? Oh, well, I only really want to work with women. A lot of my stuff only really resonates with them. Okay. Why 35 to 45? Oh, well, I'm 35. It's like, no, that is not a valid reason to niche down your audience. Like, you got to have a real reason as to why you have that. If I look at my like demographics, my average client is between 45 and 55 years old. I don't just market to 45 and 55-year-olds. Those just happen to be the people that are most attracted. Why? Because I run a marketing agency, and by 45, 55, that's usually the age range where people start looking at marketing agencies. They've run their business for a while. Now they're looking to get help, right? But I've also had people that are 32, 33, 34 that are just a little bit ahead of the game. They've been doing this since they were teenagers, and so now they're ready. But I don't go and just say like, well, I'm only going to talk to people 45 to 55 and only talk about Gen X problems. It doesn't make any sense. So I think that's the other thing that people have to wrap their head around, is that your niche needs to be specific. It needs to be intentional to why you're picking those people. Like, what is the real reason behind it? And like the 5 whys methodology is great for this. But the other thing is that your niche is going to evolve. Like, when I first started my agency, I was any entrepreneur, any small business. And then over time, I realized that my success was in this specific category. And so I niched down and niched down and niched down and niched down. So I think those are the 2 things that will really help. But again, you're not even going to know what your niche is until you start talking to people, because the people you think might be buyers might not have the money to buy your product, in which case you better not build a bunch of marketing for them, because then you're just back at square one again, having to do all this process from the beginning.
And that's a good point too about the clients that you actually do attract who want to spend money with you, right? And that can change over time. So just because you make a decision to work with these people today doesn't mean you can't do a course correction down the road when you figure out, just like with you, well, I'm going to have a general marketing company. And then like, well, no, I have better success in this part of the world. So let me start focusing on this part of the world. I'm not saying no to everybody else, but I'm spending my focus, my money, my advertising, my marketing money on the one that I know is going to get the best results. And they're going to then talk me up. They're going to send me referrals. That helps my business. I help them. Now they're going to help me. It's like a relationship building thing.
100%. I mean, a lot of times I will have people come through that are not in my core kind of demographic of service businesses, like my e-com clients. They come through, but because I can, after talking with them, I can see like, okay, yeah, we could help you do this, right? Like you meet enough, even though you're not in our core audience, I can still help you with this. We still take them on. And it's not for a lack of clients that we're just taking anyone on willy-nilly. It's that, no, I think I genuinely can help you. I think you'll be a good case study. I think, we can make some waves here. I think a lot of people get it into their head that if someone comes through that's not their ideal match, that they automatically have to reject that person. And so like I had a grief coach come to me last Friday and she said, I'm really focused on just helping women, but I had this guy come to me and he's like begging to work with me and I don't know how to tell him no. And I was like, why would you tell him no? She's like, I don't know. I was like, well, then don't tell him no. Just take his money and work with him. Because I was like, does he meet all your other criteria besides being a man versus a woman? Yes. Then work with him. Because who knows? That might be the case study that then propels you into opening up 50% of the market. So it's one of those things that like you really can't, you really shouldn't be turning work away unless there is a definable reason that I know I cannot be successful helping this person because of A, B, or C, right? Either they don't have the money, they don't have the motivation to do it, or we didn't click. Like I don't feel this is going to be a healthy relationship for my business.
You just mentioned something that I want to shift to. A lot of my listeners are coaches, healers, people in those types of services who sometimes, especially when they're starting out, feel guilt at charging someone to help them heal or help their life become better.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you've experienced?
Yeah. So the way I would look at it, because I struggled with this, I had a very low ticket coaching program when I first started, and like it was very successful. We scaled from 0 to 6 figures in about 3 months, and that was all happy. But as soon as we hit that 3-month mark, I couldn't take any more clients. Like I was working 60 hours a week serving all the clients I had, and I could not possibly put more people into this program. And to figure out how to make more money with the time I was given. And what I realized was that when I started raising my rates and bringing on new clients, that if I tripled my rates, I only had to get 1 client instead of 3 clients to pay the same amount. And because I was working with less clients, I was able to provide them a higher level of service. And that's really the key, is if you're trying to serve people, you need to charge them enough to be able to serve them. Like charging them a low amount and then not serving them to the best of your abilities is doing them a disservice and not giving value for their money, right? It's like, it's the same reason why we don't really go out to eat anymore as a family. It's because, you go out to eat, you pay $120 to get dinner. And I'm in the backwoods, man. Like for a family of 3, we often would leave a restaurant with a $120 bill for food that's not even as good as what we could cook at home. And so it's like, yeah, there's the convenience factor, but we had to drive to the restaurant. We had to sit there, entertain my 2-year-old daughter, like all this stress. I'm not getting the value for my money. I'm not getting, like, if it was $20 and we all ate and had a great time, then I would say, yeah, that's a great trade. But they can't do that because they have overhead costs. And I don't want to do it because my wife's a great cook. Why would we go out to eat when she can cook something equal or better at home for less money? And so when you're thinking about your clients, you have to think about the fact that if you're charging them too little, you're not just robbing your own bank account. What you're robbing them is of an experience of working with a coach that actually can dedicate the kind of service that is going to make a difference in their lives. The other thing to think about is if you're struggling with this, is think about it as a scholarship. Okay, I'm going to take a certain number of clients at a lower fee because my heart goes out to them. They're going through like the hurricane, the folks going through the hurricane cleanup, right? There's a lot of people that aren't going to be able to afford certain services. If you can provide those services for a discounted fee and that makes you feel like you're giving back to people in need, That's perfectly fine. But limit that to 10% of your business and then charge what you would have charged them, tack that on top of your rate for everybody else. And so the idea is that those clients that are paying more are providing the opportunity for you to provide scholarship for those other people that can't pay. And so that at least makes it feel like, okay, the people that can pay a little bit more. The people that can't pay a little bit less. And so that sometimes helps people get over that feeling of like, I can't possibly charge this much. But the reality is like, you don't get to pick how much you charge. You don't get to pick how much they're willing to pay. And if someone's willing to pay 3, 4, 5x what you're willing to charge, then the only person you're hurting is them. Like, by not taking as much money and having to overburden yourself with clients, they're not going to get the service that they need to have the transformation they desire. So that's the real way to think about it, is that, it seems counterintuitive, but you are hurting your customers by not charging them as much as you need to.
And that's a really cool way of looking at it too. The scholarship idea is really useful. It's not that you're discounting your services, so you're not like giving them a handout, but you're giving them something they will value. Yeah. Because they couldn't have in their mind and their belief system and their financial situation, maybe they could not have afforded to work with you at your rate. But with the scholarship, they value that, as opposed to, well, it's just a discount, they give it to everybody. A scholarship is something special. And so that wording sometimes even provides value to the recipient, because they know that they were special enough, that you thought enough of them to provide this for them specifically. So
and the other thing that comes with scholarships is I would also put like some very clear lines around it, because what you will run into, just it's the natural course of business, is people value what they pay. So if they are paying a discounted rate, they are probably not going to be as engaged as the people that are paying a higher rate for your services. So the way to get around that is you set clear ground rules for the scholarship, which is you need to leave a testimonial at the end of your experience. You need to make these appointments or whatever the service model is. And if you don't, we are going to bill you the full rate. So there's a carrot, but there's also the stick. Like you can't, don't give it out to people who aren't willing to take on those responsibilities as the client, because at that point you really are just giving a discount. But a scholarship, like think about a scholarship in college, right? You have to keep a certain GPA, you have to attend all your classes, you have to, not get in trouble in the dorms, like all that stuff. And if you break one of those rules, they take the scholarship away. That's how a scholarship program needs to work in order for it not to be perceived as a discount.
Good points. Very good points. And that's a good way to explain it to the person that you're offering the scholarship to. We value this and we value you, but there are guidelines and these are the rules. And if you choose something else, that's perfectly fine. But the scholarship ends when you choose not to meet the timelines or whatever, milestones, whatever you want to call that stuff, right? That's a cool idea. I really like that. Okay, so let's go back to the beginning business person who is starting their marketing experience. They don't have $1,500 a month to spend on Facebook ads. Where do they start?
So I'm just going to walk you through, we have the 3 cycles of marketing that we've kind of defined. And so I'm just going to walk you through the first one, because I think that's the one that if people can crack that, they will start making sales. And there's plenty of people that stop after the first cycle and build very wildly successful businesses, and they don't need to go any further. That starts with the market research component. So it starts with going and talking to people. And the way you do market research is like so ridiculously easy. And I tell people this, and they're like, there's no way that works. Like that is too easy. It's too stupid. Why would that ever work? And then they do it and they go, I can't believe it worked. Like every single time. So all you do is you go onto LinkedIn, you go onto Facebook groups, wherever your audience is congregated, and you send out messages to people that say, and I'm going to skip over like the rules and regulations about like what you can do on LinkedIn versus Facebook. Go do your research on that part. But this is how it works. You reach out to people, you say, hey, I'm launching a new product. I don't have anything to sell right now. I'm just kind of in the market research phase. I'm trying to understand how I can help people like you better. Would you be willing to jump on like a 15-minute call and just share some of your thoughts on this? Right. And that's what you do. And you would be shocked at how many people will raise their hand and be like, yeah, no, that'd be great. I'll be happy to help you, because it taps into two things that humans naturally want to do. One, they want to share their opinion. People value their opinion more than anything in the world. And so if you ask someone's opinion, like if I ask you right now about what your opinion is on the state of Ohio, you're going to tell me, you're probably going on a 20-minute tirade about why Ohio is the greatest state or why it's not the greatest state, right? Because you have an opinion on it and people love talking about their opinion. So that's the first thing. The second thing is people want to be of service to others. And a lot of times we don't get the opportunity to be of service in a meaningful way because of just the way our world is set up, right? It's like, it's just, unless you're like volunteering your time or like bringing soup to the sick neighbor or whatever, we don't have a lot of natural born opportunities that come out that don't require us to go above and beyond what our normal busy schedules are. So you send these messages out to a bunch of people and you conduct interviews asking them about what is the pain point, like figure out what is the thing they're struggling with. What is their desired outcome? What are they hoping to get at the end of all of this? And you collect all this data into a spreadsheet and you start seeing trends about where are people running into the same roadblocks? What is the terminology that they're using? What are the core desires that they're really looking for? And then you take that information and then you go and start creating content around that information. So a piece of content could, like for a, let's say you're like a pet trainer, right? Like a dog trainer or something like that. The content could be like 10 ways to get your dog to start soiling on the carpet, right? Like that, maybe that's the big pain point that you're talking to pet owners and stop going to the bathroom on the carpet. Like, that's what I need the most help with. Okay, well, now that's a wellspring of content that you can create. And because you have more time than money, you have the time to create the content. When you have a lot of money, you don't have a lot of time to create content. So naturally, this is not going to be something that you're going to want to build a skill with because it takes so much time. But since you have the time now, build the skill. That way it is easier as you continue to grow your business. So as you're going through and creating content and getting feedback on that, and you're doing market research and you're going through this whole process, naturally what's going to start happening is you're going to start being able to put a product together that people will actually want to buy because it's addressing those specific things that are coming up consistently in your market research. And that's as simple as you add on a little section to the end of those research calls. This is, thank you so much for taking the time today. I just have one more question for you. If I was able to help you with A, B, C, and D, would you be interested in working together? And naturally, you're not asking them for a sale. You're not pitching them anything. All you're asking is, would they like help? And most people are going to say yes. And so on the spot, you develop a program that fits that exact person's need, but while also taking into account the other things you've learned in market research. So, all right, so I'm going to come to your house and train your pet. And then we're going to do some coaching calls, like via Zoom, so that I can show you like how to discipline him when he's acting up or whatever. And you put all these pieces together and you pitch them and you say, normally I'm trying to sell this for like X number, but since you've been so kind to me, I'm going to like give you like an 80% discount and I'll just take the 20% of whatever the purchase price is. So say it's like, you're going to sell it for $1,000, then you, instead of selling it for $1,000, you sell it for $200, right? So they get a good deal. They feel like they did a good thing. They feel like, well, you've talked to them, all of their problems. It's probably worth giving you a shot. And so that's how you make your first sales. And now if you really look at like how much money you've spent so far, maybe if you are going LinkedIn and doing like LinkedIn automation, $200 a month, which is doable for most people. Most people can not do Uber Eats for a couple of weeks and like scrape together $200 to be able to do this. If you're on Facebook, it's free. You have nothing but your time. If you're on Twitter, it's free. So, this is the high. It's going to take you a lot of time to do it, but it's going to take you very, very little money to do it. And then once you have that offer and you have enough people say yes, then you can start raising the price and you can start testing. Okay, I gave everybody, that first 5 people 80% discount. The next 5 people are only getting a 60% discount, and then a 50%, and then a 40%, and then until you get to your where you want to charge, and then you go 20% above that, 20% above it, and 20% above it. There are people that use this market research tactic well into after their products launch because it's so effective at getting people on the phone. So it's something that once you have it down, at the beginning, there's people that just stay in this first cycle forever because they're making money and they don't need to move on to the second cycle. Once you have that offer and you are selling it and you know what the price is, you have all that dialed in, that's when you create your sales page. That's when you actually put a landing page together that lists out exactly what it is, because now you're actually building a sales page from real information, the data you gathered in the market research, what you actually were able to sell, what people actually value, addressing the objections that you had on those calls for people said, well, what if my dog doesn't learn in 6 weeks? Okay, well, here's how I'm going to address it. Here's how I'm going to address that objection. Well, what if, $1,000 is a lot for dog training? I don't know if I can afford that. Okay, well, we can split it up into 4 payments, whatever it is, right? So you have all of this now to put that sales page together. And then your next step is to start paid media. So now notice by this point, you've already made money, right? You already have money coming in. You already have a system to generate business. So you don't even need paid media at this point. Like I said, there's people that just do this. They build the sales page and they just stay there and they do this for years and it works. But if you want to start scaling, if you want to start reaching more people and filling your pipeline even more, and you want to start not having to do as many of these interviews and you feel like you have a pretty good handle on it, then you do a direct to consumer lead ad on Facebook, $50 a day. So now we've gone from, free essentially to $200 a month. Now we're at like $1,500 a month. Now it's a big leap, but I suggest you do tests when you first start creating ads. You do a 10-day test at $50 a day, which is $500. So even if you can't immediately go from $200 to $1,500, go $200 to $500. Run it for 10 days, see how it works. If it's printing money for you, keep spending money, don't turn it off. If it's not, take the next 20 days to reevaluate why didn't the ad work? Is it the sales page? Is something wrong with the sales page? Is it something in my funnel? Does the ad not look good? Whatever it is. Once you complete that process, you pretty much have a self-sustaining business. Like once you have cold outreach at play and you have paid media, that's a business right there. You don't need to continue to the next couple cycles because all those is really just scaling your operation. And for a lot of people, they don't want to scale. They just want to stay as a solopreneur and they want their clients and they have their target revenue and they're happy that way. And if you're happy sticking at 120K a year and you have these pipelines working for you, there's no need to go any further. But if you do, that's when we start getting into like the second and third cycle.
Cool. So you mentioned a bunch of platforms. The listeners could actually find you on a bunch of platforms. Yes. Where could they find you if they want more information?
I am most active on Twitter or X, LinkedIn, and TikTok. Those are to be the places I frequent the most. So I put a decent amount of content on those. It's really one of those things. Like I encourage anyone to reach out to me at any time through whatever platform. Maybe we do check it. But I think one of the key points is that when you are first starting out, don't go and adopt a bunch of platforms just to say that you have a Pinterest if you're not going to be active on Pinterest. Marketing agencies kind of have to break that rule because we kind of have to be everywhere, because I've had clients come to me and say, well, I want to advertise on Twitter, but you don't have a Twitter account. Or I want to advertise on LinkedIn, but you don't have a LinkedIn. Well, I had a LinkedIn account, but you can see where I'm going, right? And so there's been a lot of times where I've wanted to kill Facebook and Instagram altogether because I don't really use Instagram. I don't really use Facebook. But the reality is I have a lot of clients that run Facebook ads. And if I don't have a presence there, then they think, oh, well, that must not be part of what he does. So just a little tangent, but I think important because it's another place that people get overwhelmed is trying to manage 15 different social media accounts when realistically, like if you're looking for organic reach, just go onto TikTok or X.
And what's your website?
GroHaus.org, GROHAUS.org.
Cool. So we're coming up near the end of our time together, but you actually have a resource for our listeners if they want to spend a little bit more time with you. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so if you're not bored of me already, I actually run a free group coaching session every Friday at noon Eastern. It is invite only. So all you need to do to get an invite is you just need to email me. So you just send me an email, drew@grohaus.org, or you can send me a message on any of my social channels. And we keep it private because we like a small group. So we're not looking to get 500 people in there. And we want to make sure the people that are coming in are actually going to be able to provide some value as much as they're going to be able to get some value out of it. So if you're interested in that, reach out, be more than happy to talk to you. And if you're interested in signing up for my full coaching program or using us as an agency, there is a link on my website where you can book a call with us.
And the links, if you haven't been taking notes, are in the show notes below. Just click on the link and it'll take you right there. So before we close out, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
I think one of the biggest challenges that I've had to overcome in growing this business is a belief that enough is enough. And so you get to a point in business where you start seeing success and then you start getting complacent, start getting paid, you start able to put a little money away, and you feel like, oh, I've done it. I've reached the top. And you stop marketing. And you just think, well, I have enough, so I don't need to continue putting effort into my marketing. I can just stop. And as a marketer, it's counterintuitive because you'd think I would be the one that is constantly pushing forward. But I don't need a Lamborghini. That's not my goals in life. And so there have been plenty of times where I've hit my goal of what I want to make money-wise, and I don't have that same desire to keep pushing forward. I'm just like, well, I'm just going to kind of keep things normal. But the reality is growth is a binary. Either you're losing ground or you're gaining ground. And if you're just staying stagnant, if you're not marketing, if you're not putting yourself out there and continuing to push yourself forward, you're not going to stay consistent. You're going to eventually lose ground. It might take a month, it might take 2 months, it might take 2 years. But eventually you'll get on a call with me and you'll say, I don't know what happened. Everything was great. And then like the last 2 years have just been terrible. And then I'll be like, what did you do in the last 2 years to market your business? And you'd be like, not really anything. And that is not a position you want to find yourself, because that's the moment where you realize that you've been out of the game so long that you don't know, you're disconnected from your audience. You don't know what kind of content they want. You don't know what kind of ads they're going to interact with. You don't know what kind of outreach is going to work best for you. So when you hit that point of complacency and you can feel it and you feel like, I don't really need to push this as much, I don't think I want to take any more clients, that's when you need to double down. That's when you need to work even harder, because the growth you're sacrificing is not just upward, it's preventative. It's keeping you at that level. You have to make sure that your new clients are more than compensating for whatever clients you're churning. And so I would say my closing thought is, don't let complacency be the enemy of your business.
Totally agree. And it's so easy to do. But awareness is the first step for change. So there you go.
That's right.
Now you're aware. And so, Drew, thank you so much for being here. It was a really interesting conversation, and there's a lot of good reminders for me.
I'm glad. It's been a pleasure, Gina. I appreciate the time.
Yeah. And to my listeners, thanks for tuning in again. We'll have another episode next Tuesday. But for now, this is your host, Jean Border, with the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey. Until next time.
We trust you enjoyed this episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast. Energy work to better your business. Hosted by energy healer Jean Border. Remember to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey.